Joining me right now is Robert Colvile. He's director of the Centre for Policy Studies think tank. He's also a Sunday Times columnist. And, of course, still in the studio with me is Benedict Spence as well. Robert Colvile, thank you so much for joining us.
Not at all.
There was a lot in that speech about, rebuilding Britain. Like, a lot of people are very concerned. We don't build infrastructure anymore. We don't build power stations. We don't build railway lines. We promise them, we don't build them. Reservoirs, you name it, we don't build it. We also don't build enough houses. Every single government in recent decades has promised loads of house building, and they never reach their targets unless you do a little bit of accountancy magic. And people are crying out for new homes. But, of course, we know no one wants them built near them. So, Robert Colvile, what did you make of what Sir Keir Starmer had to say? First of all, 1.5 million new homes over a 5-year term. Is that achievable? Is it likely to happen?
I think it's just about achievable, but it will require building an awful lot of homes in years 4 and 5. Housing it's as anyone can imagine, you're getting permission, getting spades in the ground, getting houses built. Takes a while. That said, this I think was exactly what we needed to be hearing from Labour, and indeed we should have been hearing from the Conservatives. This is sort of laser focused on one of the huge great issues with the country that I and others have been screaming about. We don't build enough houses, but also the stuff about energy infrastructure and about infrastructure more generally. The cost of building a mile of high-speed rail in this country is 10 times what it is in other countries. And the key word, I think, and the sort of interesting word is bulldoze. That Labour have said they will deliver this by bulldozing through opposition. And that's going to be interesting and challenging, because every other attempt to do this kind of stuff, including the innumerable attempts to build new homes, new towns, has been met with, people lying down in front of those bulldozers.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We always joke about this, but, there's NIMBYs, not in my backyard, and then there's the bananas, a phrase coined, I think, by Steve Norris when he ran for Conservative as a Conservative mayor for London many years ago. Build absolutely nothing anywhere near anyone, which seems to be where we are right now. In particular, though, something I was really, really pleased to hear from Sir Keir Starmer was the idea of building on the Greenbelt, although we talked about it, is actually the grey belt. And when we talk about building on the Greenbelt, a lot of people go, oh, this terrible old green and pleasant land, we're so overbuilt in this country. And in fact, it's extraordinary. Only 2% of our land in this entire country is actually residential buildings, including gardens. The Greenbelt has been growing ever since it was set up. It's a new statutory order that it's now 13% of land, and it's basically huge big swathes of land around many of our larger cities and towns. But the trouble is, most of it isn't. An awful lot of it isn't beautiful, fields with gambolling lambs and amazing views. It's actually really quite, it's unused land. It's sort of old, old garages, old stations, it's quite ugly land. We need to build on it, don't we?
Yeah. It is the greatest marketing exercise in the history of British politics, because you hear Greenbelt and you think green. In fact, the Greenbelt is an urban containment device. The Greenbelt was not devised in order to protect precious farmland and beautiful meadows and little butterflies and lovely oak trees. It was designed to put a ring around urban London and to prevent London growing out. And then Greenbelts were put in place around other cities to prevent them growing out. And that's why London hasn't grown geographically in the last 50 years in the way that, say, Paris or Madrid might have. But the result is that, yes, there is an awful lot of quite bad land in the Greenbelt. And a lot of people have been saying for a while that there's more sensible ways to do this. We should identify the most beautiful land, the stuff that is genuinely, precious, and, the stuff that we on the cover of all those reports about saving the Greenbelt. And we should, make sure we absolutely do protect that. But the land that's right next to stations, that's that's former slurry farms, that's former quarries, that's former industrial sites. There is a lot of stuff in there that really could and should be built on. And it could just the sheer size of it. The Greenbelt around London is now 3 times the size of London. So we could build on a tiny fraction of that, without making any doing any damage at all to the country's biodiversity.
And it did, and the building that's going on in, not just the capital city, but also in many other the great cities, the Midlands and the North, just this building of more and more and more high-rise apartment blocks. Certainly near where I am in central London, every single train station. There's just like not an inch of land that is not being turned into residential accommodation. I suppose for a lot of people, it's like, well, they don't want to live in a high-rise flat over a railway line. They want to have I know it's old-fashioned, but, you know, a garden and a picket fence, and they want to have local amenities and you know, and live as sort of a rather more sort of suburban, villagey existence, don't they? When Sir Keir Starmer talks about building new towns, you know, Milton Keynes, lots of people very, very happy to be living there. A lot of people would say, "Oh, I don't want to live in a new town. It's got no character, got no soul, like a long-established, centuries-old city." But we need new homes, don't we? We've got, is it an extra 10 million people arrived in this country since the year 2000? And we've only built, you know, a few hundred thousands of the homes that we possibly need towards that. We need to build new homes, full stop, no matter where they are.
Yeah, since the Second World War, compared to the average European country, we've built 4.3 million fewer homes, which kind of helps explain why house prices in the UK have gone up massively, why millions of young people are living with their parents, why affordability ratios are just excruciating. I mean, it's not the whole explanation. And on top of that, as you said, we've had very, very significant immigration since 2000. Last year, net migration was around 600,000. You know, that's not the cause of the housing crisis. The cause of the housing crisis is that we haven't built enough for decades, but it's definitely contributing to it. If you see what's happened to the rental market in London, that's obviously driven by the fact that a lot of, you know, not just a shortage of properties, but the fact that a lot of people are arriving. So, but the issue is, I mean, in terms of new towns, you know, Ebbsfleet outside of London was meant to be our big new town, but it hasn't been delivered with the powers that were needed. It was, you know, they didn't bulldoze through opposition. They sort of tried to do it by getting everyone to join hands and agree with each other. And as a result, it's been, you know, pretty slow. It's like it's not as good as it needs to be. So,
but that's the thing I find strange, because we all agree we need more homes. This is the bit I don't get. We've got big house builders, the Barratts, the Persimmons, Bellway, Taylor Wimpey at Berkeley. They buy up land. They get planning permission. It raises the value of that land hugely. You can sell these homes for a fortune. I mean, often we're told we're going to have affordable housing, which is, well, maybe affordable to someone on a six-figure salary, but not to most people. And yet we're in this ridiculous situation where home ownership for young people, 25 to 34-year-olds, it's down from 70% in the mid-90s. That's when I bought my first home in the late 90s, to just 40% now. UK house prices have risen 400% in real terms. Nothing, you know, nothing like what wages have done. A house price to earnings ratio is now 6 times. In the capital, it's 13 times that of people's wages. We all agree we need more homes. We need to increase the supply to meet some of the demand. What is stopping that happening? Is it the planning restrictions? Is it these big multi-millionaire owners of building companies say, let's deliberately limit the number of houses we build so we can keep the prices up and keep our profits up? Is it the NIMBYs? What is the reason why we don't have enough homes built?
So it is partly the planning system. It just takes longer now than it did to build homes. There's more points of opposition. As a result of that, it becomes an increasingly legalized process. You end up with fewer, larger sites. You know, the big boys are the only ones who have the money to pay all the lawyers and pay all the consultants you need. But fundamentally, the counterpoint to what you were saying about young people not being homeowners anymore is that old people are homeowners. The cohort of people over the age of 55 or so, an extraordinary number of them now own their own homes outright. You know, without a mortgage. You know, in the last 20 years, their share of national wealth has gone up by 10%. The under 55s has gone down by 10% because they've all made it. They've been the beneficiaries of this great boom. And so for them, unless they are motivated by wonderful fellow feeling for the young, which some of them are, there is no real percentage in them approving development if it's going to mess with their own lives. And they also tend to vote at elections. Turnout among pensioners is about 80% of elections. Turnout among 20-somethings is about 50%. So not only do they have all this, you know, not only do they have this incredibly loud voice, they have a disproportionately loud voice compared to the young people.
Okay. It is fascinating. I know you've written about this many times. You've also been very influential with the Conservative government, not influential enough to actually get more houses built.
Maybe I'll be influential with Labour.
You've been doing it. We hope so. We hope so. Robert Colvile, he's the director of the Centre for Policy Studies. Thank you so much for joining us.